Hi, I'm Barrett Brown. I'm making this video for the same reason you're watching it, which is that people like to watch videos as opposed to reading stuff. Over the last week or so, there's been a unfortunate deficit in what people have read and what people have written about an issue that is of extraordinary importance. It should be of particular importance to anyone involved in Anonymous, Telecomics, WikiLeaks, any supporters thereof, because the information involved uh, got to us because several young people uh, who have sacrificed to get it to us. They went out and took it from the organizations that work with the governments and with the other companies that themselves work in many ways against us or for their own view of how states and citizenry should relate. The people I'm talking about, of course, include those charged for the original H.B. Gary heist, which resulted in the 70,000 emails that we used last year to show any number of things about how the intelligence contracting industry works. This industry that in 2005 made up about 30% of the intelligence budget for the U.S. and uses up God knows how much now, years later. Back in 2005 as well, the CEO of Abraxas, Richard Hollis Helms, 30-year CIA veteran, not to be confused with the other Richard Helms, who was the director of the CIA, talked about Trapwire, a new capability that his firm was been developing. He gave an interview and he said that Trapwire, quote, uh, that it will, quote, get information more accurate than facial recognition, unquote, and then went on to mention a couple of other comparisons and a couple other capabilities in broad terms that it would use in the CCT, closed circuit cameras located across the world now. Trapwire itself, we know, one of the few things that you'll know if you have read some of the early stuff on it that's not from the New York Times or from Gawker, is that it's used in Texas, part of public safety in Texas, bought in 2010. It's used in Los Angeles County. It's used in parts of Nevada, particularly Las Vegas. There has been some reports it's used in either London Stock Exchange or by the Scotland Yard, but those are either not the case or at least being denied. And they're definitely used in Australia. Australia is an important part of this story. You wouldn't know that from reading almost anything about Trapwire from the major outlets and even some of the minor ones. It's only been mentioned a few times at all. Australia, a few days ago, there was an article about Trapwire and about Cubic, the company that owns it. Very large industrial defense and increasingly information security sector firm with dozens of subsidiaries worldwide, including a defense Australian Defence Applications Cubic, whatever it's called, subsidiary in Australia, which is very much has been a strong part of Australia's sector in terms of defence and security. Cubic itself, overall, has been an increasing part of Australia's not just national security, as it's called, but also the sort of day-to-day public security. There was an article that was not taken down, which is very good for Australia, a while back about how Cubic has been obtaining and seeking to run things like the smart card and otherwise to get into the transportation security business with the Australian government and with governments in the UK and elsewhere. And that article was obviously didn't make a whole lot of waves back then, but more recently an article did make waves in Australia. It appeared in the Sydney Morning Herald, which is where the two authors of it are based, and one of them is an editor there. It was about how not only that all this Cubic's uh, great campaign to win all these contracts to handle the civilian security and their transportation to become part of their lives every time they get on the subway and or whatever, uh, and how that might be interesting or worth noting when we put in the context of Cubic also owning Trapwire through Abraxas, one of its subsidiaries. That article was taken down the next day, not just from the Sydney Morning Herald's website, but from 5 other websites, major outlets, online outlets in Australia. All down, all deleted. No explanation up there. Not edited. Not replaced with an explanation saying we're reviewing this, and also we talked about Cubic and we shouldn't have. Nothing like that. And some of this has to do with Australia's laws But the fact is that Cubic did manage to get the article taken down, and that the guy who, the co-author, who tweeted, who was asked about why it was taken down, tweeted something like, "Oh," and then I was also asked about why there's no explanation. Said the other day in one tweet that he put on this. Since then, he's been talking about other stuff. Just everything's going on as normal. Oh, I thought the explanation was up. Well, no online explanation ever did go up. There was an explanation apparently that I've yet to see that appeared in the print edition of the Sydney Morning Herald the next day. And Cubic itself put out a statement to the fact that it does not have any relationship with Trapwire. Well, we know about Cubic. People like me who have been pursuing it since last year, when the persona management came out from the H.B. Gary emails, which again were taken by some old friends of mine and some people who really weren't friends. And we try to make use of those on echelon2.org, our wiki for Project PM, and other anons and telecomics people have been very much making use of them, and some journalists. Cubic, we know from last year, has another subsidiary that it does has kind of led by the nose, and that Abraxas has. It's called Intrepid. And guess what? Cubic managed to hide its relationship, its connections whatsoever with Intrepid, when two Guardian journalists, who are very good journalists, first looked at Intrepid after it became known that that company had won the Persona Management Fake Virtual Online Army contract for CENTCOM. Google Persona Management. See Echelon 2 Wiki for details on what it is, and why it might get better, and why that might be a bad thing for certain people, and then later for most people. Anyway, so Intrepid, another of Cubic subsidiaries, they hid it. They hid their relationship. 6 months later, one of our Project PM people found out, verified, which we suspected was that yes, Intrepid was a wholly owned subsidiary. We had to go through their tax documents from 2010 to find that information, but it was found. It's up. It's something that any one of us could have told any of the reporters who were interested, but most of them did not know what Cubic was, or did not see fit to mention it at all in the articles they wrote telling us that it was no big deal. Those reporters include some douchebag at the New York Times, and also Adrian Shinnick Gawker, who is a considerably larger douchebag and does not know what he's talking about. Also did not mention Cubic or any of this. Anyway, 7 years ago, they mentioned facial recognition as this being better than facial recognition. We don't know if it uses facial recognition, this Trapwire deal. We just know that it's being used. It's being used by some not too shabby governments, as I've already mentioned, and we don't also. Wow. Wow. No, it's not more than 2 minutes. It's 7 minutes.